Hello and welcome to the Metapod podcast, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. EUIC just happened, the biggest tournament ever. I'm pretty sure, right? I mean, there were
I mean, there's
3,300 players, Sean.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, well, at least the biggest tournament outside of China and maybe Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biggest Western event to happen, to my understanding. And even like VGC, VGC had over 1,000 players. If you do not
Jeez.
know, spoiler alert, Wolfie Glick won. So this is like
Spoilers.
spoilers, but this is like just talking about him real quick. This is like the third biggest VGC tournament ever that he's won, like in a row. And apparently, like, it was incredible that he won this time around. And I can't wait for the 2-hour long video essay about how he won EUIC uh, in this tournament.
All right. All right. I was trying to think of the name of the F1 racer who races on Red Bull. I should know it because I watch a lot of it, but listeners will know. Listeners will know. He's kind of like that.
Mhm.
You just kind of expect him to win at this point, which is kind of wild.
I was gonna
Uh,
say, with the correlation of Wolfie, LeBron James, and Faker, how does this affect everyone's legacy? I'm just kidding. I'm being dramatic. Anyways, Sean, did you have a good weekend?
I did, yeah. I played some Pokemon. I hung out. I chilled. So it was cool. I actually went to my locals and I was able to get with this Eevee. It's cool Pokemon Day Eevee. So that was fun.
Before Pokemon Day.
I think they started giving things out on the 17th, different
Mm,
items. But yeah, said starting on the 17th. So yeah.
okay.
But anyways, I mean that brings us to our very first topic, Jake. I mean, which is Pokemon Day. If you want to kick us off there.
Mhm. Pokemon Day is happening later this week. If you do not remember from the podcast episode, I think it was last week, I talked about it. Pokemon Day is going to be happening. Is it the 27th? The 27th it is going on. So Thursday of this week, if you're listening to this episode, the week that it releases, during that, your local leagues are going to be giving away special promos, right? Exclusive to Pokemon Day. There's going to be other giveaways happening, different events, friendly battles, how to play sessions, tournaments. So whether you're a super serious competitive player or maybe a collector, go check out your local hobby shops happening there. And some of the things that they also announced that they're giving out. One is demo decks. I know that demo decks are popular in like Bandai card games. I don't remember the last time demo decks happened in Pokemon. Do you?
I don't know for sure. I feel like they're in the back of my mind. Like some stores have had them. It may also be that stores maybe make their own demo decks. They kind of like do it
Hmm.
themselves, like grassroots. But um, I don't know if they did this maybe like last year. I don't know. There's like something in the back of my mind, but I think it's a recent phenomenon, regardless.
I definitely feel like it's not super common for
Yeah.
Pokemon because they push a lot of like great products for beginners. Like it even says on the box from the PokeBeach website that it's a level 1 product, right? If you've heard the Metapod through the last couple of years, we've talked about the levels 1, 2, 3 products that they do. And so level 1 being a very, very, very beginner oriented level. So definitely, if you want to learn how to play the game or maybe try it out, XYZ, stuff like that, go to your local league doing it. But they're also giving out, Sean, the Pokemon Illustrator contest promos. We've talked about the promos and the Illustrator contest itself a number of times on this podcast. We are big, big fans. And Sean, I did not get the Pokemon Center promos in time before they sold out, unfortunately.
This is very sad, Jake. this is
It literally sold out within, like, 10 seconds. It was insane. Like, I went in, like, pretty much on, like, when I first woke up in the morning, and was ready to go, and I got in right away. I didn't have to wait in the queue, but they were all gone.
Yeah. I feel like that's the nature of the Pokemon collecting world right now, and it's, I was commiserating with others this afternoon. It's just like it just feels
Mhm,
awful to just be like, I know Pokemon is trying to combat bots. I don't think you sell out of them in that like speed without there being a lot of bots involved, probably. Um,
mhm.
and it's unfortunate. Like I think they're trying to combat that on their system, but clearly it's not working. Whatever they're doing, like it's just not working yet.
It was
But
crazy because like, there was some restocks and stuff that they had other day for, like, ETBs and boxes and stuff, and, like, I think was one of them Prismatic Evolutions? I think it was,
Mhm.
and I was able to get some. I was able to make an order, and I was able to wait in the queue and get it, and it was pretty cool. It was awesome in my opinion, or no, it was Journey Together pre-orders, that's what it
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
the ETB
I was
especially.
in the queue. Yeah. I was in the queue, I waited, I got it, and it was easy, it was smooth, and I wasn't even in right away, to start. I saw it, like, a couple hours later or whatever, and everybody that I heard from loved the queue method, but, yeah, this one just right away, and I remember I did the same thing last year for the 2023 Illustrator contest promos because I love the Illustrator contest promos, I always get them, always being this year and last
Relative.
year,
Yeah,
I
yeah, 2
guess,
years.
but anyways. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's every year from now on. And I remember I got it, like, a couple hours several hours later, I made my order, and I was able to get it easy, you
Yeah.
know? So it was so sad. So I hope that local stores have plenty of these to give out if you're like me and you missed it. Thankfully, I have a friend that's sending me an extra that they got from, I think, one of their local stores. They started giving them out early, so,
Yeah.
but man, hopefully you were able to get one of those if you're looking for it.
Jake, moving in now to the big story, the main story. This weekend, also one of the reasons that it was kind of fun for me is I did get to watch a lot of Pokemon, specifically
Mhm.
EUIC, the European International Championships. We did our predictions, Jake, but I
Let's
well
not talk about it, though.
yeah.
Let's talk about the results. Let's talk
So,
about what
I will
actually
say, I'm just
let's
gonna call
not
out.
think about our tier list.
I was way off on Reggie Drago. I just gotta put that out there. I think the highest placing Reggie Drago was. I mean, it's not the worst. I mean, there was a 17th place, but it wasn't the powerhouse.
What was the what was the deck that you were really that I was super against you putting in a specific spot? Do you recall? I should have looked back on the episode before we recorded. I just got off of work.
I don't know. I can't.
Uh,
I erased my memory. I Part of me wanted to say it was either Archaludon or the Cloth deck, but I'm very revisionist history there.
I will say that no matter what our past selves said, Cloth definitely stole the show
Yes.
in these championships. I'm gonna say it. Terapagos stole the show because there's only one Cloth in these deck lists. It's not fair to call it a Cloth deck because it's a Terapagos Brood Bonnet deck, but that's not as
Yeah.
cool to say, I guess. But anyways, the, Ryuki Okada ended up winning the event, taking down Natalie Millar in the finals, was really, really cool. Hashtag bring back OCIC, for the Australians out there because they have to just win 2 of the Australians making top 8, James Cox as well. But the deck, Sean, have you looked at the deck list for the, Terapagos deck?
Yeah, it's great. It's like I have it open now, so the people that are watching on YouTube can see it. But it's it's got it's a pretty straightforward deck. So for those of you who don't know what this deck does, for whatever reason, like broadly speaking, the deck utilizes either it actually has kind of three attackers, I would say. It's got Terapagos and Cloth are your like big hit attackers. Um, and the way that you actually get to the knockouts is by manipulating the board state such that and including binding mochi to then poison your opponent's Pokemon and leave them with just enough HP so that they die during Pokemon checkup to poison, and thus you negate the Fezandipity as well. So that's kind of how the deck
Mhm.
is arranged. But the fun thing about this one, Jake, is you're also running two Badoos. And Badoo, a very valid attacker in this deck, if you didn't know.
I think we've talked about it probably when the Prismatic Evolution format started. I wouldn't say that we've talked about it in the last week or two, but Budu, if you do not know, in this kind of poison box deck, I would say with that Itchy Pollen starting off with 10 damage. If you go ahead and poison both active Pokemon, maybe have a Radiant Hisuian Sneasler on the field, right? That's 2 extra damage counters. That's like basically 30 damage, right, per Itchy Pollen Budu swing. But with the Binding Mochi, that makes a 70 damage attack in essence on your opponent's Pokemon with every Itchy Pollen with that there. So the deck really revolving around finding these different tool cards in Oranguru V, right, with that back order ability. If you do not remember what it is, if Oranguru V is in the active spot, find 2 Pokemon tool cards, put them in your hand, shuffle your deck, and especially with Latias EX, Sean from Surging Sparks, putting in Oranguru V in the active, even though it has a bulky 2 retreat cost, is so easy to get out and move around because it's a basic Pokemon, right? That Latias EX with Skyliner giving it free retreat, playing several Arvins as well in this list, as well as the ace spec of choice, Precious Trolley.
Yep.
This Area Zero Underpaths deck can get a huge bench really fast and start hitting some big numbers early.
Yeah, and I think that's really what makes this deck so strong is the speed with which you can
Mhm.
theoretically get set up. Because you are running Squawkabilly, you're also running a copy of Carmine, and you have Luminion to go fetch that out. So between Luminion, Forest Sealstone, Carmine, and Squawkabilly, you can actually churn through a decent amount of your deck pretty quickly. Um, and the other benefit here is you're also playing that Baby Petulant, which was a promo that allows you to put 5 more damage counters between turns. So it has the ability to win games before your opponent even has a turn. I'm very familiar with this. I have some version of this. I've been running some version of a Petulant deck. It's not as good as this, but some version of this kind of deck for months now. And so against a lot of especially evolution decks, what we saw in Natalie's deck, who played Dragapult in the finals, in game 3, spoilers for those of you who haven't gotten to watch it yet, but I'm sorry, there's not much to spoil in game 3. Natalie went second, only started one Dreepy, knowing full well what they're up against, right? So they only clearly had one Pokemon in hand, and Ryuki,
Yeah,
yeah, was
Ryuki.
Ryuki was able to get into a situation where they just did 70 damage between turns or more with Petrant and Radiant Hisuian Caesar without attacking, and the game was over before Natalie even had a turn. So,
Yeah, donk decks are so back, Sean.
yeah, yeah. So I will say, like, I think this one is going to be really fun between now and rotation. Um, I don't know if this deck survives rotation as is because you do lose the Sneasler. You lose a couple of those damage counters extra between turns. You lose for a
Mhm.
Sealstone, which is really important. And then finally, you lose the double turbo energy, which I think there are ways to run some form of this deck without double turbo. You'd probably run glass trumpets. You'd probably
Mhm.
run maybe an energy switch or two. But really, like losing the Sealstone and the Sneasler in particular, I think is pretty rough for this deck.
Losing losing the Sealstone Sneasler and the Oranguru
Yeah.
V, right? Oranguru V has the ability to find Forest Sealstone, right away on the turn. So I totally agree with you. I think it's gonna be interesting if this deck would want to survive rotation. Definitely think it, but I think it actually like, has some sort of potential to survive rotation, right? Because you still have the Brute Bonnet package, you still have Itchy Pollen Budu, right, to be able
Yep.
to, freeze and, prevent your opponent from playing item cards, so, like, you can still, like, item lock, and maybe the difference in numbers is just a little too much to avoid against, but you can still do what, like 50 damage on an Itchy Pollen just from Brute Bonnet binding Mochi on a Budu alone, so that's pretty okay, I think. So it's
Yeah.
just all gonna depend on a lot of those things, and plus with the Monkey Dory in this list that Ryuki was playing, there was a one of Monkey Dory because, you're constantly placing damage counters everywhere and stuff like that with poison, and people are gonna retreat throughout the game and stuff to prevent knockouts. You can manipulate where those damage counters are in a sense with the Monkey Dories, so allows you for some really, really cool plays in my opinion.
Yeah, I personally, the games that I saw Ryuki play and the games that I've seen other people play, if you're
Mhm,
looking to build this deck at a non-EUIC level, I might consider finding different cards for Monkey Dory and the Dark Energy. I know that maybe like the people out there who like know everything in and out. The reason I say that though is there's no Earthen Vessel in the deck, so
mhm.
finding your Dark Energy is very difficult. Um, and you just are very rarely prioritizing Monkey Dory. And sometimes your only attachment for turn needs to go onto a Cloth or a Terapagos. So I only say that because I never saw Ryuki play it. I've never seen anybody who has run this deck actually use the Monkey Dory. So that's the
Mhm.
only two cards that, for anybody looking to pilot this deck, play style, you might want an extra copy of Carmine or an extra copy of Arvin or whatever. But that's what I might consider for those of you out there.
I I think it's also really interesting if we look at, like, the rest of the results, right? Maridon, nowhere near the top what is it? Like, with the lowest one is, or the highest one is 26th
Yeah.
overall. No Maridon through the top 26. I would have not guessed that.
I mean, it's probably a factor of like Archaludon and Dragapult. Like, I don't know if
Mhm.
Miraidon's match up into those two decks in particular. Like, I don't know. It's a weird one. I think Iron Hands can put in a lot of work against Dragapult early. And we actually did see Dragapult versus it was actually Lugia. So maybe that's different. Yeah. I don't know. It was a Lugia that was running Iron Hands because I do think Iron Hands is really good into Dragapult because of the speed
Mhm.
that you can get it up and running. But I think the late game could be maybe a little awkward if Dragapult can like piece together four prize turn, knock out your Iron Hands, two other things, Iono UL at the same time. Like that, I think that it maybe is pretty awkward, but that's sort of my guess there.
Sean, let's take a look at Natalie's list as well. I think all the Australians that hold testing group, which I would say is probably the best testing group in the world at this point, with like Brent Tonneson and James Cox and Natalie Millar, like such huge names. They piloted a Dustnor Dragapult to this event, and it did well, right? Two placings in the top 16. Dragapult, you know the name of the game. 200 damage, put 8 damage counters, or no, six, I'm sorry. I don't even know the name of the game. 6 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you'd like. And with the Dusclops Dusknor package, you'll be able to manipulate when prizes are taken, maybe some knockouts as well and things of that nature. One of the interesting things about this list, I've seen people go on and off about this card, but the Australian team playing three of them in their list, Lance, Sean.
Yeah. I think it is because of Badu, right? You
Mhm.
think about like, okay, well, I'm item locked. How are you searching out most of your, Dragapult line? And it's usually going to be Buddy Poffins and Ultra Balls and Nest Ball, all that stuff. But having three copies of Lance means you can at least, worst case scenario, if you have Luminion in hand or if you maybe just have the Lance in hand, just go get three of them out, not worry too much about Badu, and say, I'm still going to keep setting up, So I think that's probably the big rationale in their mind for Lance, which, it's smart.
I mean, if you think about it, if you have just a lone Budu in the active to start the game or something, and your opponent, and you have to use a lance right there is basically a buddy buddy poffin plus one, right? You grab two little Dreepies, put them on the bench, and you grab a Drakloak as well to evolve one of them. So interesting to see players use that. I know some people like swear against it, and some people are like, no, 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 Lance is really good. But I really only saw people use like one, maybe two max.
Yeah.
I feel like in decks and things like that that I saw online heading into this event. So three of them was really, really nice. Glad that I bought my Lance alternate art supporter a while ago.
Yeah, yeah, the stonks on Lance have never been higher.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's a great list, and I will say, like, if you don't get a chance, the finals match was not a good, place to watch this, unfortunately, but go back to top 4, and watch Natalie, and even the top 8 match, that Natalie piloted this deck. Really amazing to see certain turns, and I will say game 2 of the finals was also really interesting because Ryuki did get ahead. Did you watch the finals, Jake? Did you get a chance?
I haven't made it there. I'm watching the
Okay.
whole thing in order, so I'm at the end of day 1.
Oh, geez. So I will
Well,
say
it's like a
that's
13-hour
I know they're
day!
very long. That's commitment. But I will say game 2 of the finals, I think is also really interesting in that Natalie was behind. I think Ryuki only needed 2 prizes and Natalie needed 5. And you sort of think to yourself like, "Oh my gosh, how is Natalie going to pull off this game 2?" And you see Ryuki bench a Budu thinking that they can item lock Natalie for one turn. Natalie only has a few cards in hand. But in game 2, at least, it was very fateful. There's a part of me when he benched it that I was just like, what are you doing? You've opened yourself up for a 5 prize turn. And that is exactly what happened. Natalie was able to boss up a Fez that had 1 damage counter and then was able to spread 1 damage there, 3 damage, 200 damage onto the Fez, 3 damage onto a Badu, and 1 damage on a Terapagos that only had 10 HP left. Take all 5 prizes and take game 2. So I don't know. It was a really cool like masterclass in watching a player at that level pilot a deck, which can be like really complicated at times, like managing like your prize mapping. So just yeah, definitely check it out if you aren't or if you're looking to get into Dragapult. That's a great place to start.
Yeah, I think, spread decks in general are very interesting to watch, especially as good players pilot them because there's so many minute decisions and so many interesting options that they go through. But that might not even be the deck that stole the show, Sean. Goldango made a ton of noise, and I might have bagged on Goldango, but I will say that my TCG player card has me ready to play Goldango here in the coming weeks,
Yeah.
potentially, because of all the coin bonus drawing that you can do. If you do not remember, Goldango EX has an ability coin bonus. Once during the turn, you may draw a card, and if the Pokemon is in the active spot, you can draw another card, right? And then for one metal energy, you can discard any number of basic energies from your hand, and you do 50 times basic energies. So you play a ton of different basic energies with your Energy Search Pro Aspect, right? Being able to find one of each basic energy type and then be able to cycle them through superior energy retrieval through wow, that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's very specific. I
Or
guess
night stretcher, I guess you can. Yeah.
yeah, there's a couple of nice stretcher in the deck which I saw in one of the games get utilized, but yeah, the 4 superiors are
Mhm.
really that's it.
Yeah, I really thought that there was like a super rod in there or like a energy retrieval. I think I know that some Goldango players were playing in energy retrieval. Like
Mhm.
there was a whole testing group that played the same 60 and got top 100 in the in EUIC. I'm talking like Xander Pero, Rahul Reddy, Grant Shen, Isaiah Bradner, John Ang, right? Like all of those guys made top 100 in the event. Xander Pero finishing third. overall. So I think there's probably an option, but this group at least not opting for it and instead playing Cypher Maniac's code breaking.
Love it. I It was so interesting watching Xander play turns because sure, the way that you think about Cyphermaniacs usually is like, oh, I'll play it and then I can draw 2 cards with a Goldengo. And yes, that did
Mm.
happen sometimes. But oftentimes too, you draw so many cards with this deck between Pheasantipity, which is almost always live in most games, and then Goldengo's coin bonus abilities and Radiant Greninja, you might draw like 6, 7 cards after drawing your card for turn. And oftentimes, by doing that, you'll find all the pieces you need. And then you're just like, well, let me just Cypher Maniac's code breaking now, not for this turn, but to stack the top of my deck for next turn so that, maybe I get Ionoed or maybe not, but I just know at least what the top card of my deck is at minimum. And with, coin bonus and other things, you'll draw more anyways. So I think that was a
Yeah.
really interesting use case.
I remember who was it? Grant Shen did an interview after he won one of his rounds and like how much chin power, even though you're doing the ability and you're discarding a whole bunch of energies at one time. He's like, it's not the same. And it was just really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I think it works really well in this deck in particular.
Mhm.
Just cool to see. I think Cypher Maniacs. I think it's another supporter that's just going to see more and more play, especially when things rotate and we have fewer options. I think people are going to really start jumping onto the bandwagon of sculpting the top of your deck. But yeah, just a really cool list. I think that 260 number is also very awkward. Um, Obviously, Dragapult can do 200, move it to the bench, and then swap that 6 out and take 4 prizes. So that is one deck that the numbers kind of can add up. But you do have a Monkey Dory in this list, so that really messes the math up for a
Mhm.
Dragapult deck and actually fixes the math for Goldengo, bringing something that's 320 or 330 HP down to 300, so you need 1 less energy. Um, and so, yeah, a lot of cool stuff there. I think this list, what's important here, just opting to run the 70 HP gimme goals, even though the 50 HP one might have a better first attack. Just recognizing that, hey, I need as much HP as possible because Dragapult is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's one of those instances where if you're using the Pokemon's attack, right, the gimme ghouls or whatever, you're probably losing.
Yeah, fair. You're already in a bad way.
Yeah.
Um, and then rounding out the top 4 here is another one that sort of popped onto our radars and other people's radars pretty heavily after the cup that I streamed a week ago, which was Archaladon. Um, and there was, that debate, right? Of do you play it with Dialga V-Star? And at least for the 4th place player, Simone Fiorito from Italy, um, you do play the Dialga V-Star because the value of taking that extra turn is just so high. And that's why you're running a pretty heavy package of 4/4 Duraludon, Archaladon. You're running a lot of Earthen Vessels and Researches. And the goal really there is just to get a few Duraludons out, 3 of them, and then get 1 Origin Form V out. And then, in 1 turn, just power it up all at once.
Mhm.
And then when you're done with that, use your Professor's Churro and your Super Scoop Up Cyclones to pick those Archaladons you evolved back up so that you can reuse their ability on themselves later on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And plus, with a 300 HP attacker and Archaludon EX that hits for 220, like you talk about the scoop up cyclone and stuff like that, it's really cool to see the deck function in this way and do a lot of stuff. The one of Relicanth is
Hmm.
also really cool with that memory dive, being able to Raging Hammer. So if that 300 HP Pokemon tanks a hit, you can do 10 more damage plus the base 80 on the Duraludon's attack as you're swinging with that Archuludon EX. Very, very cool.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of people were looking for Relicants in my local area, being like, "Oh, okay, who has Relicants? Anybody have the illustration rare? I want to bling this deck out."
Mhm.
So it's it's interesting to see. But yeah, once again, another Pheasantipity, which I just wanted to point that out. How many of the top 4 decks ran Pheasantipity? So one, Goldengo runs it. So
I think all of them did.
yeah, I want to say it looks like Pheasantipity is kind of our new man, what's the closest thing we've had in a long time? I don't think we've had like
Dedenne,
yeah, Dedenne and Crobat.
Crobat, like those.
I mean, they're it's a different effect. I'll grant, anyone out there that, but it's been a while since we've had a support Pokemon that really just does go in every deck. Because like Luminion, you could maybe argue for a moment was a bit like that, but I don't know. I feel like people just you draw enough cards now that people just assume, oh, I really don't need to play Luminion in a deck or whatever. But yeah, every deck just is like, I'll play Fez. And even if you knock it out, I'll Night Stretcher it back and we're going to keep drawing these cards. So I just wanted to
Mhm.
point out it's interesting to see.
I think it's kinda cool that multiple decks played Monkey Dory as well, and
Yeah.
neither of them were Gardevoir. Monkey Dory, probably not as useful, but still making some waves in a sense. So I just wanna give a quick shout out to the Fernandez brothers. Vinny getting 5th in the event with Dragapult. We won't really talk about the list, but his brother also, Gabriel, winning seniors in EUIC, and I think further solidifying that he's probably one of the best seniors to play.
Yeah. I mean, I was just telling people at my locals, I was like, Gabriel Fernandez and seniors and Vinny having won big regional events in the past. Maybe I can't remember all the different ones he's won, but the two brothers are like, the modern era of the Schmansky brothers, perhaps, or the
Yeah.
Erickson, Jesper and Stefan. These like there's like a couple of groups of like siblings that are just really, really good, and it's crazy. But
Mhm.
outside of those top 5, we did have a couple of decks that I think, we were really low on, which was Snorlax. We were very much
Mhm.
like this deck, people aren't playing it anymore, and we should never have doubted the Europeans to bring Snorlax to the table at a major event. And yeah, quad Snorlax in this 5th place list here. And really only 2 other Pokemon, Rotom and Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. But really the goal is to get all the cards you need in your hand, sculpt your hand, and then pick up the Rotom V with something like a penny before it can get knocked out. And then at that point, your opponent can't even boss around Snorlax. It's just there. It's the only things on
Mhm.
the field. And so you're just stuck, and it's so annoying. Playing handheld fan. So yeah, it was really interesting to see this. And Jake, I am excited for you to get to see the top 8 match where this got to shine a little bit.
Didn't it play against Dragapult?
It played against Natalie. Yeah, Natalie had to
Yeah,
maneuver their way through this. I think it really came
which I
down
think is a
to
bad matchup for, Snorlax, right?
it's definitely a little awkward because if Natalie is able to set up their bench pretty quickly largely with like useful Pokemon that theoretically
Mhm.
could attack, and then maybe a few Duskulls, right? And that way, like, oh, you don't really want to bring a Duskull up because Natalie can just evolve, blow it up, get some damage, and then bring something else to the active. I think what makes that matchup kind of awkward for Natalie is a couple of cards. Handheld Fan can be really
Mhm.
awkward because it can move your energy onto less useful Pokemon. Um, and for those of you who don't know it, if you attack a Pokemon that has that fan attached, um, after the damage is done, the player who was attacked gets to move an energy from the attacking Pokemon onto another Pokemon on the bench of their choice. So that's pretty awkward, especially against Dragapult, which may only run 5 or 6 energy. So that I think is where it can get really funky. But Natalie did have to make very, very good use of the one Professor Turo in the deck to sort of navigate the matchup.
And that's why you run it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It just shows like just even a one of as a little bit of a nod to the fact that like this is an archetype that you might see at high level competition. So I will say though, a card that it's not a great card outside of this, unfortunately, but Boxed Order, Jake, I love this card.
Oh, yeah.
I want to find decks for this card so bad. I hate that it makes your turn end because also your turn ends and the odds that you get Iono'd in these formats are just so high. It just
Or Buddude.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You put 2 items in your hand, your opponent hits Badu, and you're just like, well,
These items are
great.
cool. They'll stay
Yeah.
here. I'll keep them.
But for a deck like Snorlax, where you're like, I'm gonna trap anything else in the active, and I'm just gonna go grab some accompanying flutes and some, pal pads and pokey gears and whatever. That's pretty dope. That's kind of cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's an interesting list. I certainly would not, run this at my locals just because I think I would make everybody frustrated by doing that.
You're trying to win.
Yeah, it's a deck that you bring somewhere where you really want to win and you don't expect people to have the answers for it. But
Mhm.
yeah, coolest 0 energy in the list. I don't think that that's so crazy, but I think even stall or control lists in the past oftentimes would run like a random Pokemon here or there that needed 1 energy. So I wonder what the highest placing a deck has ever been that had literally 0 energy in the deck. This might be up there.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Cornerstone Ogerpon, the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX,
Hmm.
having the demolish.
Yeah.
If you have like a double turbo and a fighting energy or a what's the one less prize energy? Uh
Uh, One less prize and
Luminous? The A spec.
legacy energy.
The legacy, yeah, some
Yeah.
people run that, secret box being the choice in this list, but, like, some people run that in a double turbo, and so if, your opponent is pretty good at, like, recovering resources and stuff, at least you're pressuring with that cornerstone stance ability and just
Hmm.
being able to just hit them constantly and maybe take 6 prizes.
Yeah. So just cool to see. I don't know. It's just sort of an interesting set of decks. Outside of that, I don't know, the notable ones that I just want to call out being kind of high up. Grant Manley did run a Lost Zone box deck.
Mhm.
So 11th place for Lost Zone box I think is pretty interesting. Um, what other decks? Any other decks that sort of caught your attention in the that we haven't mentioned briefly?
I would say not really. I mean, the one that just really caught my attention was the Goldango deck, right?
Yeah.
Because I've not been a super big believer on Goldango, right? I'll admit that myself. But um, yeah, I mean, there's the group of Xander Rahul, all those guys putting it together and having a really good finish and a really good set of results between all of them.
Yeah. The one other thing I just want to call out, which I don't know if it's necessarily good against all these decks, but I do think that Dragapult is really good, and I think it gets better after rotation relative to everything else. I don't think it necessarily gets a ton of pieces, but everything else sort of gets brought down a little bit, and I think that elevates it. There's one card I was just thinking about because so many Dragapult lists now, after seeing Natalie's deck as well, may not run Energy Acceleration, will not run Crispin, you know?
Oh,
So
yeah, there was a whole conversation in the Metapod Discord server that you can check out in the show notes or the description below. 0 episodes since we've mentioned the official Metapod Discord server. Anyways, there was a whole discussion about Crispin in Dragapult in the server. Shout outs to all you.
I think it's still, a personal preference question, but I think more and more people may not run it after seeing how well Natalie did. And I will say, I'm just going to call out if you are playing Dragapult, if you want a one of tech card, if you have Luminion in your list and you don't want to run Crispin, just look up Giovanni's Charisma.
Oh,
I'm
I know
I'm
that card.
this is no joke. You Giovanni's Charisma and Lost Vacuum that sparkling crystal. Your opponent is unlikely to attack the rest of the game from one
Yeah,
Giovanni's
that's pretty
Charisma.
crazy.
So for those of you who don't know, Giovanni's Charisma says you can attach an energy from your hand to your active Pokemon. If you do, you may put an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon back into their hand.
Mhm.
So it's effectively, it does a similar job as Crispin. The difference is you have to have both of the energy in your hand if you go one plus Giovanni. So you may need to run one extra copy of like an earthen vessel perhaps to like sort of put it all together. But I'm just gonna point that out. I think that's a fun tech. If you see a lot of Dragapult that doesn't run Crispin in your area, I think I think you catch a lot of people with their pants down. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I don't think that's bad. I mean, card games are all about adjusting to the meta. So, especially now after EUIC, it's going to be interesting to see how the meta adjusts, through like the online tournaments and local tournaments, cups, challenges, things like that that people will do. And I don't think it's a bad, tech idea. I really don't. I really don't think that.
Yeah, and that idea, I will say, brought to you by the person in our Discord who mentioned Gengar EX and its ability to move energy around when it attacks. And I was thinking about it. I was like, yo, there's a lot of weird decks right now that don't have a lot of energy acceleration. There might be something there. So, anywho, Jake, we have a little bit more news outside of EUIC though to close the week out with. Some really exciting news though is we got some artwork revealed for Worlds, plus a piece of information that I'll let you talk about, Jake, here in a second. But the artwork
Hmm.
for Anaheim World Championships here, just really cute. They're all in a taxi, and you see people
It's
roller
California
skating.
vibes.
Yeah, very California, very colorful too. I will say, I love the color palette in this. So excited to see what the merch looks like for Worlds. But Jake, what is something that you read in this little description here that sort of put your ears up?
So I don't think a lot of people have mentioned this, at least what I've seen on Twitter. The Southern California theme drive through, things like that. They did mention as well that for Worlds 2025 in Anaheim, happening from August 15th through the 17th, that there's going to be an interest list to attend Worlds as a spectator. That's going to open up in March. There's no limit on, the amount of people that can enter in the interest list, but once the interest list is open, there's only a limited amount of time to sign up. So one thing that I'm kind of worried about, because when I first read this, the first thing that I thought of was that getting into Worlds this upcoming year is going to be a lottery, right? If you're a spectator. And with much more limited Worlds participant entries this year, and just in general with Pokemon craze, like, let's be honest here, Pokemon scalping is huge right now. And you talk about cards, you talk about the Pokemon Center, right? There's going to be a ton of people that are going to be signing up for this interest list. So if it's lottery based, I mean, I have no indication to believe that I wouldn't get in right through a lottery list. We don't know the amount of people that are going. We don't know, how the interest list is even going to work. Really, this is all pure speculation, nothing else. But I'm gonna be real pissed if it's a lottery. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be so mad because I'm actually gonna be able to go to this one. I'm gonna be
It's
able to go to
relatively
Worlds.
close. You could drive there theoretically.
Yeah, and that timeline of the year, I'm gonna be available.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, we talked about it on the podcast. I was really looking forward to going to Anaheim. I'm really looking forward to going to San Francisco next year, right, for Worlds. And so yeah, if it's lottery through this interest list and it's not as bountiful for people to get in, right? If it's pretty closed off, That's sad. That's pretty sad, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. We'll wait and see. They did reduce the number of competitors this year quite
Yeah.
significantly, which in my mind, I was like, I understand that, right? Because managing players at a tournament is one thing. But the hope was that that would then open their capacity up to the number of people who may want to attend Worlds. So, look, I get it. The Pokemon world right now is absolutely crazy. Um, and I think a lot of that is going to be people wanting to go to the Pokemon Center. So while this does sound like a lottery, a broad lottery, there's a part of me that's crossing my fingers. That's just like, just do a lottery for the Pokemon Center. Because I think that is what the majority of people who are trying to just get in are going to be going for. Whereas people like myself and Jake and a lot of other players will also want to stay for the 2 extra days and do side events and like, uh, where, I don't think that necessarily that number of people will need to be capped. I could be wrong, but I feel like the
No
Pokemon Center
idea.
is kind of the real sticking point. So please separate that out. But I mean, who knows?
I I mean, you talk about how EUIC had 3,300 players, Sean, the most ever. And so you talk about, I mean, we've talked about this time and time again, fire codes, right? Like there are a limit on the number of people that can be in a building, especially at these major events. And so I think that's something that you really have to factor in with something like spectator badges and interest lists, right? For this. So that's, I mean, Pokemon is huge right now, especially, just joining. And you got to think about VGC, you got to think about the Unite teams,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Unite,
true.
even though I've heard that is it Luminosity? I think Luminosity is like they're winning so many events that they're just like taking world spots from other teams. So they're like minimizing the amount of teams at worlds, which is honestly an ESPN 30 for 30 if you want to make that. Pokemon Go, right? Like they've got that game too and stuff. So I don't know. And I might be a little bit doomsday vibe, with this, but I don't like that there's an interest list at this point. It could just be me being a little worry wart, but I really wanna go to Worlds. I've never been to Worlds before. I've never been to any Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, look, hopefully we can put our interest in and it won't be so bad and it'll be fine. So I think I'm still going to put my
Yeah.
interest in. I think it's worth it. And if you want, definitely just get on the list because we don't know. So when it opens up in March, just throw your name in the hat at minimum.
Yeah, and hopefully, maybe somebody working for the, Pokemon TCG social media team maybe wants to talk to the Metapod and getting us creator passes. I don't know, could be cool. Anyways, you didn't hear from me, but
Jake, actually, this brings up. I'm glad that we started talking about this because I was thinking to myself, I was like, how could we make sure that we get in? I don't know, Jake. This is a bit. You're gonna hear some inside baseball here for the listeners. Jake, did you check the Metapod email recently? I don't know if you even have it connected.
I have it connected because I uploaded it on YouTube, but I have not gone on it. Should I be going on it?
Well, we got an email from a company that's related to the Pokemon company, or it's related to eBay actually. I wanted to bring this up, and so I hope this is okay, Jake. But we got breaking news. This is a big deal for us. We have embargoed news, Jake. Did you know that?
Okay. It's so big that I don't even know about it yet, but Sean's bringing it on.
I'm breaking it to you, Jake. So
Yeah.
we will also. This is why the podcast is coming out at 9 a.m. on Tuesday because that's the embargo. For those of you who know, you know.
Oh, it's
Anyways,
9 I didn't know that.
now so yes, I'm breaking the news to Jake live on the
Okay.
pod.
Is that 9 a.m. Eastern time? Hold on, let me write this down.
It's 9 a.m. Eastern. Anyways, Jake, we talk a lot about news, but this is some news, and I want to call it out because I want to get in good. I want to get in good. Anyways, eBay is going to be doing a big Pokemon Day thing. And we normally don't, like, we're not here promoting eBay. We haven't been paid. This is literally just news. But for people who love Eevee, this is the year of Eevee for the Pokemon, for Pokemon TPIC. And for
What? It's the
Pokemon
year of
Day,
Survivor. What? I'm just kidding. Go on. I'm
that's
sorry.
that's 30th anniversary. We're not supposed to tell them about that one yet. Um, but there is eBay is doing a whole promotion for like a week, and all of these things that you can buy on eBay, all of these biddings will be on EVs, right? A variety of different EVs. Like I'm showing on screen right now, Jake. You have the original Jungle Flareon, Jolteon Vaporeon. There is a Japanese promo EV. There's the V Maxes. They have some of the all the Van Gogh merch. This is all to say, like, look, all of these cards are always available, sort of on eBay via a rotating thing, but there will be like special listings that start at different prices. Um, there's more details, Jake, if you're checking the email that says embargo.
Oh, I'm waiting until after the podcast is over, to look. So just in case my computer internet
Fair
tanks
enough.
or whatever. But
Fair
yeah.
enough. But yeah, starting on the Tuesday, the 25th. So if you're hearing this, then it's out, it's released. There's just a curated selection of a bunch of cool EVs on eBay. I only bring it up because it's like a big thing that they're doing on eBay specifically for Pokemon Day, and I thought that was kind of neat. No guarantee that there will be particularly good deals when all of the the bidding is done, but it should be interesting. It should be interesting, and hopefully that means we get more breaking news in the future too, Jake.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
But yeah, that's the last news story was really a GameStop one. Jake, do you want to take this one over?
GameStop determined that they are not going to be doing pre-orders at their stores or website on Pokemon TCG products. It was an internal email that was sent to store employees. Customers no longer allowed to pre-order Pokemon TCG products from the website or stores. And I'm going to be honest, I think that this is really just a way to just get people in the store. They want you to, because GameStop, let me tell you, people don't go into GameStops anymore. They just pre-order, right? Especially when it comes to Pokemon TCG products, right? Think about how much more money that you could make. Because you may think to yourself, oh, I'm just gonna go in and I'm just gonna buy Pokemon cards. I'm not gonna go in and buy the Pokemon mug or the Funko Pop or T-shirt. Well, guess what? That's not how marketing and advertising actually works. They want you to go into the store because the more you go into the store, the more likely you're going to buy other products that are there, right? There's a reason that at the grocery store they have the gum and the candy bars right at the checkout, you know.
Yeah. I will say I I think that this one might bite them in the butt, Jake. And I'm going to tell you a
Yeah.
reason. The reason being, like, with the crazy hype of Pokemon these days, I think that they are underestimating that if they don't do pre-orders, they will have huge lines of people waiting to get their minimum number of products that they're allowed to buy,
Mhm.
waiting outside the store, waiting inside the store. And I understand the corporate thought process behind it, but the 1 to 2 GameStop employees that they are paying to be there when the doors open are not going to be very thrilled about this. So
No.
I think that this is going to be um, a less than savory experience for people who actually have to deal with an unruly mob. Let's just say that.
Mhm.
So
It's been quoted on PokeBeach from a longtime store manager of a GameStop store said no other TCG at GameStop has these restrictions. I'm just speculating, but I believe GameStop can't get enough allocation of Pokemon TCG products right now, so their only solution is to limit products and capitalize on walk-ins.
yep. I mean, I don't know. I just think that like there this is I think the wrong solution. I think pre-orders exist for the safety of the employees and the safety of the people going to pick up product. And
Mhm.
I think this is somebody in a boardroom who thought they had a good idea, but I don't think that everybody walking into the store to buy Pokemon is going to walk out with like 5 Funko Pops. I just I don't see that happening.
Also, remember, to anybody that doesn't mind this and will buy cards from GameStop, GameStop marks up their Pokemon TCG products anyways above MSRP. So you don't, just stop going to GameStop.
Yeah, fair.
Truly, truly.
Jake, that's all the news. That's EYC. That's everything. That's even some news to you, maybe for better or
Mhm.
worse.
Yeah. I do have 2 quick things that I do wanna talk about. One, Arcane9 announced that they have online drops that they used at EUIC for the Masters division. If you don't really know what that means, right? If maybe you've never competed in a Pokemon big event like a regional or something like that, they have these paper slips, match slips that you circle and sign just like you do at Cups and Challenges, right? You have to bring it up to the organizer, the
Yep.
person, right?
There's
For
like a
res
desk of like some organizers and event people that you like bring the slip to when
Yeah,
you're like, I'm done.
yeah, and so when you drop, you also have to do some signing and stuff like that, but they did it mobile on Arcane9, right? Which is huge because that means you could do it from your phone if you played Bandai card games, specifically like the One Piece trading card game. The whole tournament is run through your phone, through the app. The tournament results, your pairings, your dropping, it's all through the app, and it is so good in my opinion, and I think that this is such a nice
Yeah.
direction, finally being able to drop. This is the first step of getting results on your phone and doing it. I think in Japan, they have results and stuff like that that they input on their phone.
It could. Yeah. I think
In,
the
like, I'm, like, 99% sure in Japan, in, like, Champions League, they input their results and stuff on their phone.
Yeah, I mean, I would believe it. I think the challenge with phone-based things and the reason that you might want a match slip is the signature matters with a match slip. And if each player can self-report, and if there's a discrepancy in that self-reporting, having
Mhm,
not knowing who is correct and then having the organizer need to track down both parties, which are in this giant convention hall, is a lot more difficult than having the winning player bring the match slip up where both players have signed it, but only one person needs to actually bring that up. I think that level of friction, like, there might be a way to solve for that. But I do think dropping is one where, like, yeah, I don't need after round 3 or 4 when there's going to be like 300 people who want to drop, all like
mhm.
congregating around that table at the same time as they're trying to collect match slips for like winners and losers. And so that definitely a huge step forward.
Yeah, I mean, like, even in One Piece, like, I did, online tournament, like, online regional, basically, and I inputted all the results and stuff through here, and it's really just, like, you have one person that inputs the result, and then the other person, right,
Confirm.
gets, like, a verification. Yeah, there's, like, a verification screen that they have to
Mhm.
confirm with. And so I don't think that fully solves any potential issues that you may have, but like it's I just think it's a really cool thing that RK9 was able to do. And then one more thing, Sean, that
Yeah.
boiled my blood when I saw this. Holy smokes. Sean, would you like to read the update that was given on PTCGL, emphasis on the L, the other day?
I mean, yeah, I'll read the update. I think you're more versed on how this all works, but uh, when Journey Together releases on March 27th, they will now be like introducing a new way that you can earn rare cards and how you can exchange them. So when that thing happens, cards that are classified as overnumbered, meaning above the set number. So usually that's like illustration rares, special illustration rares, gold, all that kind of stuff. Those are
Yeah,
like the super
it's
specials.
all your alternate art and secret rare kind of things.
Exactly. Um, Those cards will be eligible for trade credit exchange once 6 months have elapsed from that card's release date. No change to previous. So this is only moving forward. So when Journey Together comes out, you will need to wait 6 months before you can use the like trade credit mechanic to, I guess, trade those cards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jake, you know a little bit
I'm
better the impact this causes than I do.
I'm pissed. And it's definitely a personal like reason to be pissed. But like what is the point of blocking this, right? Who like there's no difference in your account from having alternate art cards to regular art cards. If you build up enough currency because you play the game enough and you want to on day 1 to be able to get your playset of Ends Zorark alternate arts, right? To be able to bling out your deck. Why? Because in the past month, you've put in 150 hours into this game. You deserve it because by the way, the game doesn't work half the time. Did you see the latest update that happened?
No, but I
So if you
heard
gotta
it broke
suffer
the game.
if you gotta suffer through it, right, for that long, you might as well pay and be able to, and build up your credit, but taking that away and just letting you continue to build up credit and have to wait 6 months?
Yo, you know
6 months is so long.
it's they're creating scarcity even in a digital realm. Like
Yeah,
the
where
prismatic
you can't even
evolution
trade.
scarcity is
You
now
can't
coming
even
to the digital.
trade. And so the only way to
This-
get to alternate arts is to input codes
yeah, yeah.
and, like, open codes.
Codes for packs that people probably won't be able to find. Great. This is great. I love this system.
Yeah, and so it's like I mean, I've already complained about,
Yeah.
the credit system as of late. Remember how, like, you can only open up a certain amount of these things in the shop,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
they did make
per
that
time, like,
change.
limiting those, and this is just another step, like, it's so crazy to me. Like, why? Like, who thought of this?
I
Like,
don't
why did you think of this?
I know the only thing this solves, Jake, to your point, is people inputting more codes. The only way I, honestly, I have no clue. I have no clue what the goals are for TCG Live at this point, like internally. It just feels like, who is this for? What are we doing here?
Like, do they really hate Little Dark Fury that much?
Does he not have? Because I know in the original version, the old TCG online, Little Dark Fury, Tablemon, a couple of others had like what were called unlocked accounts, where they had
Yeah.
access to all the cards. But I guess in live, does nobody have an unlocked account?
I don't think anybody has an unlocked account, but, like, especially Little Dark Fury plays enough to where he can just
Yeah,
craft it all. He
yeah.
can just craft it all.
Like day one, he's just like, I can bling out every single deck I want because I've got
Actually,
infinite
I don't
credits,
know if
basically.
I don't think Little Dark Fury has an unlocked PTCGO account.
Oh, did he not?
I think he's just played the game that much.
Fair. I remember there were a few players that like
Yeah,
had special accounts back in the day.
there are a couple that have unlocked accounts through various things like casting and things
Mm,
like that that they've
yeah.
done. But back to my point, like, why does this matter? Who cares?
That's
You can't trade, right? It's not like you're farming the Iono's Belly Bolt EX to boost up and manipulate the online trade market.
I
Like
it just
it's so stupid.
it's purely anti player in a system that doesn't seem to be like there's not really money in the system directly. So I'm like, you're not
No,
even gonna
because
get,
you can't buy
yeah,
anything in
you're
the
not even
game.
gonna get more money necessarily out of this. You're already sold out of all of your products all the time, anyways. So
You
like,
have to go on eBay to buy codes, which, by the way, once PTCGL came out, the code market crashed. So codes are insanely cheap. But anyways,
yeah,
like, you have to buy codes, which is a secondary market that doesn't influences Pokemon's bottom line at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I
did.
mean,
I would love for someone from the Pokemon Company to explain this to me about why this is a good idea.
I want to know what their KPIs are, their key performance indicators. I want to
I
know
I
what
swear to God, if
what
they
line
don't
item said
put
that this was a
if
good idea.
if they don't input microtransactions in this game to be able to, like, buy packs
Mhm.
in it, this literally doesn't make sense. If they added, like, microtransactions, alright, I can see it.
Sure,
Sure.
you trying to make money. I get it.
Yeah,
Grind set
makes sense.
mindset. Let's go, Pokemon Company.
But,
Most valuable
like,
IP in the world. Let's go.
just doing this is preposterous.
Yeah.
We've already got a game that restricts on the alternate arts and things that you can do. It's called Pokemon Pocket, and it's wildly more successful in every facet.
Boy howdy. Jake, let's take it away. Let's wrap it
I'm
up.
so I'm so like, this just makes my blood boil because I'm like, this is so stupid. Why don't we just fix the game?
This is, you know
Why are
what?
we
This
doing
is
this?
this is me sipping my margarita on the beach, not playing Pokemon TCG Live. Just being like,
Yeah, I have not.
I'm not sure what's wrong over there, but I'm glad
Yeah,
I'm
Sean's
not
like,
with you.
what the heck is a trade credit? Like,
Trade credits. The Trade
I've never heard of
Federation.
her.
What
Yeah.
we're in the prequel, the Star Wars prequels now. Talking
Yeah,
about trade credits.
I also have not really opened up Pokemon TCG live because I don't want to. But anyways, I bought a Chinese 151 booster box and I got a Pokeball Metapod. So canon to the Metapod podcast. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to the Metapod podcast, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. I'm Jake, that's Sean, where we break all the news here, and sometimes it's a couple days late because Pokemon usually releases news on days that we release episodes. Anyways, we'll see you later.